Hello and welcome to the Empower Couples podcast, where here you get modern, non-boring relationship advice for you and your partner to communicate like pros, fight smarter, and stay on the same team no matter the challenge that you face. I am one of your hosts, Aaron Freeman.
And I'm Jocelyn Freeman, but you all just know us as the Freemans.
And this episode is Marriage Trials to Triumph, our story of overcoming the hardest 2 years in our life and how we became stronger from it.
There's a lot of new people that have found us, and we wanted to recap some of our story if you're a new listener, because it's a really significant week. We are actually surrounded in our home by boxes. We are moving from where we're living now, just a couple miles.
At our dining room table, if you want to just get the picture.
Yep, we are moving just a couple miles away, but into a new home that we have been building, which you may be like, okay, that happens all the time for people. Maybe that's not that exciting, but it's really symbolic for us because of what we have overcome the last 2-ish years, which we're going to describe to you. But we're not going to just leave it at our story, which we do hope gives you inspiration, motivation for whatever you experience in your marriage. But we're going to give you some real takeaways. Like, how do we overcome these trials? Because that's the thing. In marriage, if you're going to be together for decades, you're going to face some challenges, harder times, plot twists, even in life, those sudden plot twist, you weren't expecting it. And that doesn't mean it's all hard, but we do feel like that some people have this expectation, both with life and with marriage, that something is wrong if we face trials. Mm-hmm. Whereas we've really switched our mindset to see them as strengthening opportunities.
And I'll say that was probably more of just, to be honest, an idea, I think, before. I think one of the main things we took away from the past 2 years is the reality of that statement. Yeah. We can genuinely look back and say we can see how this challenge was a benefit. And that's going to be one of the things we want you to take away from this episode. Now, as you were saying, Jocelyn, our challenge is not at any level that someone else's challenge is. It means we're not comparing level of challenge here. It's all relative to what any of you listening have experienced yourselves. For us, this is what was challenging. And we hear on Instagram a lot of people messaging us about the challenges that they are in. So,
and we also put a questionnaire in, so people were submitting a bunch of responses about what trials they're facing. So these are just a few because there were hundreds. 2 kids under 2, definitely. We have many friends who would attest to that as well, that having 2 kids very young, having children in itself is adding complexity and challenges to life. Financial stress, managing home roles while also working full-time and trying to take care of their kids. A move that benefited just one partner and the other wasn't maybe as excited about the move. Surgeries, a lot of people talked about just health issues, some smaller scale, some larger, some even life-threatening. Major conflict cycles, really feeling like they're arguing a lot for a long period of time, shutting each other out, both doing a lot of inner healing and working through their experiences, their trauma, their past. Some people talked about loss, whether that was death of parents or a loved one, even a child. Again, we mentioned health scares, even addiction. People talked about overcoming addiction to alcohol, to porn, unhealthy sex life, children getting diagnosed with things, difficult postpartum. So this is just a few of the many. But as you can hear, we experience a lot as humans, right? Again, life, we want it to be as joyful and fulfilling and the fun times as possible. That's what we all seek and want. And the reality is that sometimes we encounter some tougher times. And we really want to just extend our support to you, our hope, our prayers for you if you're going through anything. And we hope that this episode will give you perspective, whether you're in it right now or you've been there, or maybe it's coming up for you, that you can get stronger as a team from this. So Aaron, do you want to kick off with our story? First off, some people don't even know how long we've been together, where we met. So before we talk about like the last 2 years and this major trial that we really went through, let's just give people a quick overview of our time together and where we met.
Well, why don't you do it? I was telling someone recently, I have this hang up where, I hold back sharing myself and I just do it all in 30 seconds. So for me sitting here, I'm like, no, people don't care about that. So I don't really want to. No. So why don't you just give the aspect that you wanted, and then more so I'm ready for the challenge.
Yeah. So we are actually coming up on 11 years together. We met at a gym, which was something we both thought would be a great place to meet someone. You know, we both value our health and our fitness. And Aaron asked for my email address, and I thought that was the cutest thing ever. He was very guarded and distant for a while. I'm going to do the very abbreviated version, but he even tried to break up with me after a little while of being together. Fast forward, right? We got married, and we were actually married for, I think, 7 years before we even had our daughter. I was thinking about that, actually, how it's less common to wait that long for having kids, but we had some great times. We also grew a lot together. We changed a lot. I mean, I feel like if people truly met us back when we met, our lives look different, our habits look different, who we were.
Yeah, and it's probably just a good place to note that when we got together, that's when we really found our purpose in working with couples, coaching couples, making content. That's really where this whole business started from, was right when we got together.
So we have had many times together, fun, challenging. We've been through different challenges, as we have shared, but the last 2 years were our biggest trial yet, because it felt like several more challenging things were happening at once. Do you ever feel like that? Like when it rains, it pours. I feel like that phrase is really true. And so just to kind of give you an overview, and Aaron, feel free to jump in on any part, what was happening the last 2.5 years is we had our daughter, which an amazing blessing. We're obsessed with her, in love with her. I mean, it truly was love at first sight. And it's also a transition, right? There's a lot of new changes to your lifestyle, to your identity, and incorporating a baby into your marriage. I also had a little difficulty healing after birth. And, there were times where I was like, I have to rest. I have to be in bed sometimes for days, really recovering and resting. And not only that, because again, that's a big transition, but we really had several investments that we had put out there in different industries, a few different places, and it was like they all lost at one time. Aaron, do you want to even jump in on this part?
I guess for color, it's in the real estate industry and then in crypto, and this was right in the time where crypto was really going. So I got scammed myself because I chose to go that route for us, and got scammed out of some Ethereum. That was really difficult for me. Then you had, I don't want to say you got us into.
No, I did. You can blame me. Blame me.
Well, that's one of the things, I never did that, right? So I'm not blaming you. You found us an investment opportunity in which I, signed off on, of course, and that was in real estate. It was to be this multifamily real estate deal with a friend that's been in the business. We were going to just provide the investment. And I mean, it was at a time where the interest rates were going, crazy. Here we're approaching this inflation idea, and ultimately it fell apart. And so we had to I had to take over managing the whole thing, like being construction manager, project manager. I had to get him out of the deal. He really, really put us in a bad place. It was already an investment that we had put in our high risk tolerance, and we had to double it.
Yeah.
I mean, just to keep it going, to keep it from failing, we literally had to put in everything we had into it. And, for me, and our experience is a little bit different because we were kind of burnt out from the business, and yet this is a time where it's like we have to make the business work even more. Yeah. And I was I spent 800 hours in just a couple of months working with contractors and project management and trying to get this thing going. And luckily, two friends of ours are kind of in the business and literally saved us from this being
losing
a complete disaster, right? And losing everything. But still facing who knows what kind of loss is going to be for us and having everything on the line. So primarily that was
with having a newborn. So imagine this time when you're really wanting to have security for your family and feeling like it's really threatened. We're not just saying, oh, this was just a little challenge. I mean, we were nearly losing everything we had because it was a multifamily deal. It wasn't even just a single family home. So this was a significant investment, and we were really scared. And like Aaron had said quickly, we had been years into the business, And we were a bit burned out. We were like, man, we've been giving and serving and we just are kind of tired. Like entrepreneurship can be challenging at times. We'll tell you that, to be honest. It's not for everybody and it takes a lot of grit and seeing the long-term vision. Now, of course, we're obsessed with serving couples. It wasn't going to have us end the business, but we were just like needing some wins, basically.
We also had some family issues come up. What we left out was we had actually recently moved back from North Carolina to Arizona, and we were living in a small place as we were trying to decide like where to buy. And I think one of the things to mention is because of how this investment went, we had to put all of our money into it. So now we're living in a place we don't want to be in, and it's like we don't have the funds now to get any home. Yes, prices were high, but we had used all of it to try to save this investment. And so now it's like, well, we can't even get a house now.
Yeah.
And so that was tough.
We were truly in fear. Like, we want you guys to be honest. There were tears on both of our sides and truly moments of like, what are we going to do? And it was a time that we could have fallen and crumbled and just said, we're a victim to these circumstances, and we could have turned against each other. We could have blamed each other because the losses, one was yours, one was mine, in a sense. We could have blamed each other for that and said, see, you making this decision got us here. We could have turned each other into enemies. And the worst of us could have come out. Honestly, like many, many couples, that would have threatened the security and the foundation of their partnership. It happens all the time. Obviously, we're here and we're going to share with you the triumph because right now, again, this week, we'll fill in the gaps a little bit of what we did to become stronger than ever. But the triumph today, you guys, we are moving into a home that my childhood self feels so lucky to be moving into. I'm a child of divorce and of a lot of loss and not a lot of financial means. And so for me, like seriously, tears come to my eyes thinking about how our daughter is moving into this house and she has so many blessings, and we got to get the light fixtures we want, and I just feel so grateful. And it really is a triumph. Like if you guys knew also how our business exploded, like that's the part. So we need to fill in the gaps a little bit. So we're hitting this breaking point and we are lost. We could crumble. We aren't sure what to do. And it was a moment for us of digging into our faith. And Erin, maybe you want to speak to that a little bit more, but it was a moment of really diving into our faith, our character. We're going to go into all of that. But the also part of the triumph is it was like overnight a windfall, a tidal wave of growth in our business. And I seriously am so grateful. I do not take it for granted because after all of the years of hard work that we'd been doing, it was like we got the win. It was like, oh my gosh, suddenly our social media pages are blowing up. And you guys, literally this last week, 70,000 people found our Instagram and followed us from some viral reels. And it's not just about social media. Like there are people who are emailing us and sending us messages and saying that our podcasts and our books and our resources, our guides are helping marriages. And I am so grateful that we get to not only have the life that we do, but that we get to support the couples like you listening. And we are grateful to be a part of your journey.
Mm-hmm. Well, we'll even go more into some of the takeaways, but I'm just, remembering it was like literally a week, we were having a discussion about, I don't know what we're honestly going to do. And I thought to get by, I was going to have to go get a job just to kind of keep things going and see what we were going to do with the business. And then, like you said, it may have even been days. I mean, it may have been days. And again, we've been working in the business for like 7 years. So it's not like this overnight, but it's, it could have been a different month. It could have been a year earlier, could have been a year later, but there's definitely something that I have to acknowledge about it literally happening in less than 7 days. Like it might have been like almost 4, where all of a sudden this social media growth. And then it's like the next week, we're like doing a live webinar. I don't know if I've ever said this, but we were living in this small house. We had family living with us. That was creating like extra tension, and we didn't have space. Like we had to give our office over. So we're in our bedroom at the foot of our bed, had moved like all of our lights into the bedroom, and we were leading a live web class to 1,000 people. Mm-hmm. And it was a really weird experience for me because in one regard, I'm like, I can't, like it finally hit like 7 years of paying off. Now people are getting this information and it's making a difference. And at the same time, I'm thinking, I can't believe I'm standing at the foot of my bed in this tiny room, leading this to 1,000 people. Like I should be better than this. So there is definitely something here, and I wanted to kind of save. Well, I'll just try to start to bring you to some of my real lessons learned from all this. Mm-hmm. And there's a level of which life humbled me, mm-hmm. and I don't think I was at any means egotistical or like ahead of myself or thought I was better by any means, but it'd be hard for me to describe. There was something about this period of time, being a new dad, new parent, those life adjustments, the sleep, all of these investments going poorly, not sure what the future looked like. And then all of a sudden for like these wins to be happening at this time, number one, it really humbled me. Mm-hmm. It humbled me. And I really have this sympathy and empathy for humans and like what people go through. Mm-hmm. And I don't know that maybe because I hadn't really faced a lot of challenge maybe in my life up to this point.
Comparatively.
Certainly not to this level. Mm-hmm. Yeah, comparatively. And so I was just really humbled by life. I think being a parent humbles you. Mm-hmm. But all this, it humbled me. And then it just made me dig into my faith. Like, where does my faith lie? Do I think that life works out because of my own efforts, or am I actually, connected to God? Mm-hmm. And do I have a strong faith? Can I put my hope in a brighter future that this is supposed to be here for me? And it really re-strengthened that for me during this time, mm-hmm. as well as just really being humbled by life.
Absolutely. So we're going to go into some key points that as we reflect, we think are why we've become stronger than ever, why this strengthened us rather than either strained us or broke us. And I want to remind you, we could have turned against each other. We could have fought each other. We could have blamed each other. We could have made each other the enemy, but we fought for each other. We fought for our family. We dug deep into what we value and we made changes. We leaned on our faith and each other. We linked arms more than ever and worked hard. Still being massively present with our daughter and each other, but also hustling in our business. And we believe that no matter what you're experiencing, your triumph is on the other side. And we know that some of you might get interrupted or kiddo comes to grab you, and we don't want you to miss out on a way to put this into action, to be rock solid no matter what you face. So because there's a lot of new listeners, you may not know that we have something called the 30-Day Couples Challenge. And we actually have 2 levels. We actually have a level 1 now and a level 2 because so many people enjoyed the first one and wanted a second challenging round. So we have our Prioritizing Us 30-Day Couples Challenge or our Rebuilding Us 30-Day Couples Challenge. They both have amazing prompts that are gonna have you feel like you are that rock solid team. You are filling each other's love accounts. You are improving your communication. Again, having that rock solid partnership. And then the Rebuilding Us challenge is particularly if you're in a rebuilding stage of your marriage and you want to tackle the challenging conversations, but in a way that's unifying and productive. So we'll link both of those challenges in the show notes. They start on the 1st of the month, so that's coming up here soon. And you'll see why now over 27,000 couples have loved our challenges because the prompts, they are powerful, but they are realistic no matter how busy you are. So go to the link in the show notes to see which challenge you want to start with, the Prioritizing Us challenge or the Rebuilding Us challenge. And with that, Aaron, will you dive into the first reason that we became stronger than ever?
Well, I want to be very specific about this. We certainly now can say that we see trials as testing our character and have the belief that the trials that you are facing are there for you to strengthen your own character. Now, why I was framing it that way is in the moments, like, you don't necessarily see it that way in the moment. Like let's be real about that. Mm-hmm. But there's a development over some time, like a few weeks and a month. And there was a lot of work for me in my mental and emotional space. I mean, I was really so thrown off by all of this and how I couldn't believe we were in the situation that we were in. And I'm like failing the family. And then little things start to happen. I remember talking to like my aunt, for example, and my uncle had died more recently. And I remember just talking with her and sharing with her how tough this was. And she said, however this goes, like, I have your back. Mm. And then there were friends of ours that we had that said similar things. You won't end up on the street. Mm-hmm. If it came down to it, like, we'll help you as best we can. And so you start to get these little things that show up. And then it just starts to build on itself. Mm-hmm. Some more things happen. And then once for me, I got like a couple of months in, I really start to notice that there's a resilience that was building in me, and that there was something in our own bond, which I know is the point you want to make, but we were able to stay on each other's side. Mm-hmm. And then you can start to see that over, again, like a couple of weeks to a month, like, wow, this has been really hard. It's maybe easing up a little bit, or we still have a ways to go, but we can start to acknowledge some of the things that we are actually growing in. Mm-hmm. So I think more than any other time in my life, I can really say that a part of the trials and the challenges of life are not just for joy. They're not just for financial abundance, not just there for things to work out. Like, you have to really get that a part of this game that's a spiritual game that God sets out is you have to face these things such that you grow your character. Mm-hmm. Because that's the point of life. Life, we didn't come here to just be free-flowing and happy and peaceful. Like, there's not a lot of meaning in that. It's like you actually have to face challenges, and whether it is strengthen your faith and strengthen your belief in God, or be able to create stronger bonds with your family and your partner, and then certainly see that you are actually growing as a person. Mm-hmm. Like that, when you really think of it, like, what else is life really about? And like, when that happens, then the joys of wins and celebrations, and the peace and the calm and all the other positive emotions you want to experience, those can happen to you. Mm-hmm. But it just doesn't happen without these trials and challenges. And so again, we really got, like, no one could tell us different. Like, maybe before this, but trials test and grow your character. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the main things you want out of your life.
Absolutely. And just think about, in those moments, in those trials, do you see yourself as a victim to those circumstances? Do you blame others? Do you blame I'm getting this way because of this and that? That is something we would challenge you to level up and see how your character, how you can strengthen your character. How do you handle adversity? And see that you can actually rise above it and become an even better version of yourself. So I think you hit on that one really well, Aaron. I'll go to the next, which is that we saw the trial as testing our ability to adapt. So
and I just want to preface, like, when, right? It's not like it was all happening and we're like, oh, this is testing our ability to adapt.
It was a little bit after that we saw that.
Oh, this is testing our character. We might be able to say that now. Like, if we faced something harder now, I think that would be more of a default response. But like, I want to get this across. This is kind of hindsight, but we did start to get it within the challenge as well.
Yeah, because you hit this breaking point where you're like, am I going to break down or rise up from this? Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about this adapting, because in social psychology, there's something called the VSA model. We've done another episode on it where it's breaking down the entire thing. But the thing in this model is that it really helps understand that couples, they do face some hurdles, some obstacles, because you both come with a past, right? So you have your personalities, you have your past, you have your upbringing, but you also face circumstances and stressors in life. Okay, that we can't avoid that. Unless you want to live in a bubble, there's going to be even surprise stressors that come up. And so then people can blame marriage challenges on those things, either your past and your personalities or the stressors that you face. But this VSA model is so helpful because it has you see that really the choice lies in how you adapt. And think about adaptation in a relationship sense comes down to skills like communication, like how you handle conflict, like your commitment to the marriage no matter what, like no matter what you face. And adaptation, in a sense, really comes down to your actions. So you do have control over that part. You might still be stressed. You might still face challenges. You both might have picked up things from your upbringing in your past, but you do have a choice over your actions.
And your attitude.
And your attitude. Therefore, you can adapt no matter what you face. And that's what we realized in hindsight, but we really pay attention to this now. And we really invite you to see that in what you're facing is what skills do we need to acquire? That's why we hit on skills so much. That's why we equip you through our guides, through our couples challenge with the how-tos, the how to communicate, the how to handle conflict, the how to fill your love accounts and repair and all those things. That's why we focus on giving you those skills and those tools, because you do have a choice to adapt no matter what you are facing. Which takes us to the next one, which is that we saw the trial as testing our bond, which the other way we would say that is the foundation of our marriage. Because, people really think about love when you think about relationships or marriage. And of course, love is paramount to a relationship, feeling that fondness and that love for each other. Although many argue that love really becomes about action the longer you're together. But regardless, your bond is what helps you stay strong and stay committed no matter what you face. It's the foundation. We're moving into a house this week, right? We've actually seen the foundation getting built. It's actually pretty neat to see how plumbing looks and electrical and what the foundation looks like. But that foundation, if that isn't done right, it doesn't matter how many great light fixtures you put in and how pretty the art is and the paint, because the foundation is truly what's going to stand the test of time. And think about that within your partnership. Those trials that you face can strengthen your bond if you see each other as an ally, no matter what you're facing. If you default to the things we said we could have gone to, blaming each other, turning each other into the enemy, and letting ourselves become worse partners for each other, our bond, our foundation could have eroded. Because love is fragile, frankly. People focus on it so much, but love, that feeling for each other, it can, in a sense, dissipate for people, or you can lose sight of it so easily. But what about your bond? Can that stand the test of time and what you face? We believe that it can.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think even present day, we have this sense that when we do face issues or problems, and maybe it's just because of the relative nature of it, but we can easily say to each other, this isn't that big of a deal.
Or we're going to overcome it.
Yeah, we're going to overcome this. And it's because we've already been through something that was like really hard. And, I've heard this thing in the past where if you think about a scale from 0 to 10, right, and you might be experiencing something that you would label as a level 6 problem. Well, you can either try to get rid of it or diminish it or have like less significant problems. But the other thing is you can raise the level of person you are. Mm-hmm. So if you were facing a level 6 problem, it's like, well, you were a level 3 person. So if you grow yourself, and a lot of the things we're talking about here, I think humility is a big one, but your humility, your resilience, your creativity, your character,
your
and
skills.
You become a level 8 person. Now all of a sudden it's like a 6, not a big of a deal. Mm-hmm. So hopefully that analogy resonates for you, and I can say that we really do have that now perception of challenges that we're going to get through this, and that really speaks to, our bond now as well, which really leads to the last thing, which we've dripped in from time to time here, But we can honestly say that there is a lesson to get from a challenge. And sometimes that's a lesson or a place to grow your character. Sometimes that is a lesson about gaining experience or knowledge.
Wisdom.
That can, when put in action, be then wisdom going forward. But if you don't take the time to truly understand what the lesson is, we do think that you're going to repeat it. And so it's not just about moving past a challenge like, oh, we finally got out from under that project and Sky got a little bit older and then we were able to move to Gilbert, to the place that we're sitting now, not the place we're about to move into. But we made a transition. And I think we did a really good job of saying, I do not want to just move past this. Like we kind of got out of in the clear. But for me, it became really important that a part of feeling okay or resolved with what happened was for us to get some kind of lesson that we would have never gotten otherwise. And I think, led us into, hey, we need to just have enough conversations to make sure we are really clear on the lesson that we're getting.
Yeah.
Because if we can really determine what that is, I think I can feel better about the challenge that we went through. And then the idea here is that, well, likely we're not going to have to repeat it over and over again if we don't get the lesson.
You saying that about repeating reminds me of a session we did last week. Of course, we'll keep this couple's information private, but there was this huge light bulb moment for the husband, because what we basically did through a conversation, right? It doesn't happen in 3 seconds, but unraveling this conversation is all of a sudden it clicked for him that this pattern that he was not seeing was connected in multiple places in his life, with family, with work, with his partner, that it was all because he hadn't gotten the lesson yet. That was one of the things we got to. And he's like, I never connected those through 3 things that were occurring as the lesson I hadn't gotten yet. And that's what we said. And it truly was a moment of freedom for him in seeing that, because it was a blind spot. And that's what's available to you. That kind of mindset. Because you can have the mindset of, this isn't meant to happen, something's wrong here, I'm a victim to all of this going on, and resist it. And that saying, what you resist persists, is absolutely true. As opposed to if you look in the mirror and say, okay, what is the lesson for me? And especially if this has been a pattern in some way, or it has shown up in multiple places in your life or multiple times in your life and you've handled it the same way. Okay, what's the lesson that you haven't gotten yet? Because something magical happens that when you get the lesson, it's like almost like you upgrade in a video game or something, and you're like, and you go up a level.
Video games too much.
Okay, sorry. At least that's what I imagine or remember. And so you pass that test and you're on to the next thing, and your character, you're now a level 8 person. So you get the point, right? It's all in perspective. So we have covered a lot of ground here, and we got to continue packing because we are moving here in the next couple of days. But we truly hope that you took away some sense of inspiration, motivation, a perspective, something tangible that you can focus on and implement. Because we don't want this just to be a story of triumph for us. We believe that you can continue to have those triumphs in your life and in your marriage, no matter what the trials and the tests that you face. And we really believe in you. And we hope that you will utilize our resources to help, because that's what we do. We help you get not only the perspective and the wisdom to navigate through what you face and stay strong, but also the skills, the tools to adapt, to be better, to level up as a person and a partner. So if you're new here, make sure you dive into them. We make them all very affordable, very accessible, things that you can do on your own. So we mentioned the 2 30-day couples challenges. We'll make sure those are linked in the show notes. We also have instant access guides. We have many different things. So make sure you go to the link in the show notes, and you can also type in meetthefreemans.com/links. And there you're going to see all of our popular resources. But we love you guys. We're rooting for you, and we will talk to you on the next episode.